Have you ever wondered why so many German goods wagons were equipped with little cabins barely large enough for a single person? And why for many years they were barely even used? Let me tell you their full story. And for that, we have to go a few steps back. While one of the biggest advantages of railways over many other means of transportation is the low friction between the wheels and the rails, this comes at a price. In particular while braking, where the low friction results into long braking distances. This was especially a pressing issue at a time before goods trains were equipped with continuous air brakes. Despite their speed being restricted to often only 45 km per hour, the brake force of the locomotive on its own was still not enough to maintain a reasonable braking distance. Therefore, another solution had to be found, and one was found, a rather simple one, and rather costly too. Instead of developing dedicated brake vans with a high brake force, the brake power was distributed over the whole length of the train with manual brakes. At least 1/3 of all wagons needed to be equipped with one. But to be actually able to use these manual brakes, every brake wagon had to be stuffed with a brakeman. Or at least most. More on that later. Initially the brakemen were not given anything more than a raised seat, like those still frequently found on heritage narrow gauge lines today. The raised and open position gave the man a good sight and made sure they could pick up the brake requests given by the locomotive's whistle easily. To give those poor souls at least some protection against the weather, however, towards the end of the 19th century, the open seats were replaced with tiny wooden structures. But not those of the cozy kind. While at least somewhat protected, the brakeman's cabins, called Bremsehaus in German, were still not heated, very drafty, and gave the riders barely any room to move. Many early types were even open towards one side, with the brake handle located outside the cab. And now imagine doing that job in a stormy winter. You might also wonder what these narrow boards in front of the brake platforms were used for. To save on stuff, two brake wagons were often coupled with their handbrake ends facing each other, allowing one brakeman to operate both wagons by climbing from one onto the other while the train was still moving. Somewhat better working conditions offered the cabins used by the Royal Bavarian State Railways, whose general design was later adapted by the 1909 formed German State Railway Wagon Association for all new-built brake wagons. They were fully enclosed, and the brake handle was located inside, hence the half-round outcropping allowing the lever to be turned. Furthermore, they were equipped with doors at both sides, making them also much less of an obstacle while shunting, as the brake could now easily be accessed from either side. But even with these improvements, the brakemen's cabins remained uncomfortable at best and dangerous at worst, while at the same time this method of braking was also workforce intensive and as such very expensive. Only with the introduction of air pipes and air brakes for goods trains in 1925, these issues were overcome. By the early 1930s, pretty much all wagons were at least equipped with pipes, allowing also unbraked wagons to run with braked ones without interrupting the brake system, which rendered the brakemen's cabins for the most part obsolete, while also enabling the speed of goods trains to be raised to 65 km per hour. Large numbers of new-built wagons, however, still received cabs, as they continued to be used for shunting, albeit the awkward-to-climb raised brake cabins, which had been mostly used for covered wagons, were dropped in favor for ground-level ones. How useful the cabs for shunting actually were is quite debatable, however. Often they were more on the way than anything else. Still, their legacy continues until the early 1950s, until the Deutsche Bundesbahn, the Federal Railway of West Germany, finally ended the construction of new ones, which by that point were made from pressed steel rather than wood. And while some cabins of older wagons had already been removed earlier, it is at that time they were once and for all removed and scrapped in large numbers, ending the chapter of the so iconically uncomfortable brakeman's cabin. Open brake platforms, however, are still in use to this day for shunting, especially with dangerous or delicate cargo. Less fussy wagons on the other side nowadays don't get anything more than a locking brake, controlled from the ground. I hope you found this look at the small wooden cabs on German goods wagons informative. It is only the first video of a small series looking at several oddities of Germany's goods wagons. So, subscribe and stay tuned for the next one. Once again, I have to thank my channel members Dave Heise, Flip Schwip, Kay Frankly and Lucas Ilskens for making this content possible. If you'd like to help out yourself, you can find all links in the video description. What question about railways would you like to see answered? Let me know, and see you in the next video here at Steel Bridge Models.